I'd like to welcome everybody today to our program, and thank you for joining us in your lunch hour. I'm Scott Van Den Berg, President of Century Management. I'm joined with my colleague, Rachel Van Den Berg, my beautiful daughter, and our dear friend, Heather Hodes, as a travel specialist. And, you know, some people have asked why you're a money manager. Why are you planning? Why are you having a travel expert on your webinar today? And the reason is that when we're putting together financial plans for clients, many people ask to have a separate line item for travel put into their plans above and beyond the everyday living expenses. Sometimes it's, can I spend $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000, whatever the number is. A lot of times people want to know, in my retirement or as I start to do more with travel, how much can I spend and still not have it negatively impact my whole family financial plan? And so we thought this would be a very fun, kind of lighthearted, but very informational program to put together. And so that's why we're here today. So I'd like to introduce to you Heather. Heather owns her own business and as a travel agent. She was born and raised here in Austin, married, has 5 kids, travel the world. And as you're going to hear over the next 30 to 45 minutes, she's very excited about all things travel. So thank you for being here, Heather.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. It's nice to meet everybody. I'm loving the comments on the side. There's some great bucket list destinations on there.
Yeah, and we'll get, if you want to type your questions into the chat, then we'll answer them at the end. We'll have a little Q&A for you. So first, let me ask Heather, with so many online sites, let's just take the basic TripAdvisor, what would be the benefit of someone working with a travel professional like yourself versus maybe doing this on their own?
So may I go ahead and share my screen?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Please.
Let me do that. And I can kind of, here we go. Not that.
And we'll make this available to everybody afterwards.
Not that. You don't want that. You want this. That's you.
Slide.
And
there we go.
There we go. Can everybody see me? See my presentation?
Yes.
Great. Fantastic. Okay. So this is me. I'm Heather Hodes Travel. That's my motto. Let travel change you. You'll see here in my corner right here, I'm a Virtuoso certified travel advisor, which gives me an elevated distinction. And I'll go a little bit more into that later, but not Sicily, Nicole, but Italy right there. One of your faves. As far as, I'm going to answer Scott's question in a second, as far as what makes someone want to work with a travel advisor today. My name is Heather Hodes. I am the founder of Heather Hodes Travel, LLC. I own my own company. And typically people like myself, we own our own travel companies, but we are affiliated with a host agency. So the host agency that I'm affiliated with is Largay Travel. In Largay Travel, I'm an independent contractor. I'm an IC with Largay Travel, and they have a home office, a back office that handles my invoicing, commissions. We have an air desk. We actually have a physical office where if you call in, there's a receptionist that can then patch you through to me if you don't have my cell phone, but you will have my cell phone. But every once in a while, someone calls from a big something and needs to get in touch with me, and I love it because it comes up on my phone, Largay, and it's Debbie patching somebody through to me. We are a member of the Virtuoso network, which is the largest consortia of luxury travel companies, suppliers. So basically, as a Largay affiliate, I work under the umbrella of Virtuoso. So it pairs luxury travel companies and advisors with luxury members of the Virtuoso network. As far as working with a travel advisor, I would liken it to working with a financial advisor or a wedding planner or a landscape architect. Could you do all those things yourself? Of course. Do you have the contacts and the connections and the information in the background to execute that to the best of your ability? Probably not. And with the invention of online, typically when you're doing something through an Expedia or you're doing something through a Travelocity or an online booking agency, you're dealing with a call center, right? There's no one to actually connect with. But when you're dealing with an affiliate, a trusted professional, a trusted, you have a relationship, just like you have a relationship with Scott and Rachel, you would have a relationship with me. And we start in the very beginning with our introductions, and then our relationship would go on for years. We would talk about the travel you would want to do. Now, at a certain stage of life, maybe as empty nesters, perhaps in retirement, perhaps the last trip you ever, I'm literally working on the last trip a woman will ever take with her family right now. It's happy and it's kind of a sad thing at the same time, but we plan out. And as Scott was saying, that's what you're going to do with Scott, is you're going to discuss with Scott what you want to see as far as if travel is important to you, which for most people it is. How do you accomplish that? And then you partner with someone like me to ensure that that gets planned out the way that you envision it and the way that you dream that it happens. Does that answer that?
Yeah, no, that's great. So,
okay.
Let me ask you, Heather, do you see some certain trends taking place in travel today?
Let's see here. I don't know why there we are. Oh, let me talk about there are certain trends. Do we want to talk about that, or do we want to go there? I mean, there are lots of trends. I feel like I have that a little bit later in my presentation, but this is another thing I want to talk about, why you work with a travel advisor. I don't know how many times any of you have gone on a hotel website or a booking engine and you've just gone down the rabbit hole, or a Facebook forum. That's like getting on WebMD, right? And you just go down a rabbit hole of what you should do, when you work with a travel advisor, I'm doing the research for you, or many times I've been to the place that you want to go. Or more importantly, I work with a B2B, a business to business partner that is a complete expert in the destination that you want to go to. So it's my one-on-one relationship with that expert that I go to, and I say, Rachel wants to go to London. She wants to do the Tower of London. She wants to go to Bath. She wants to do Windsor Castle. She wants to go see a show in the West End. She needs private transfers. She wants to stay at the Marylebone. Let's put this all together. So it's that sort of, it's saving you time, which equals return on your time, which equals return on your life, right? Again, I just mentioned I have trusted travel partners and vetted travel products from around the world. So I belong to Virtuoso. My company belongs to Virtuoso. And then I have that additional certification called Virtuoso Certified Travel Advisor. I've gone through this whole program where I have an additional distinction within Virtuoso, which makes me certified. I think there's 1% of us that have it. But in order to even be a part of Virtuoso, it's very vetted, and you have to meet so many criteria in order to be a part of Virtuoso. So if anything goes awry or there's an issue, I then report back and it gets investigated and it gets dealt with. So again, that's so different than working with an online booking platform or a word of mouth or that sort of thing. All my destination specialists are only B2B. So most of the time you would not be able to work directly with who I work with anyway. So for example, I'm booking a trip to India right now. And I was just in India with my destination specialist. It's a company that's been in business for 50 years, dealing typically with mostly India, but also Sri Lanka and the Maldives and other areas in that part of the world. So I'm able to offer you entry and perks that you would never necessarily be able to enlist on your own. So with Virtuoso perks, for example, or cruise perks, typically that translates to like $100 spa credit at the hotel or on board, or free breakfast every day, an upgrade upon availability, early check-in, late checkout, free Wi-Fi, all those sorts of things. That's all part of what we offer. You don't pay anymore by dealing and working with someone like with me for the specific trip, but you get the benefit of my connections. It's a very travel is a very relational world. Just this little side note, my son is running in the New York City Marathon in the fall, and I reached out to all my Marriott Luminous partners, the director of Marriott Sales Worldwide. He's a friend of mine. And I just said, here's what he's doing. He's running for this charity. And so Luminous is like St. Regis, Ritz-Carlton, JW, that branch of Marriott. He had all of it. He reached out to all of his GMs and directors of sales, and they all just came back to me like, we'd like to offer you these rates for your group. So those are the sorts of things that I have access to that, and if you work with me or a Virtuoso specialist or someone like me, that you would not necessarily ever be able to gain, most especially through a platform. We talk about how change is constant, unpredictable. I can't believe it's been 4 years, but we're still reeling from COVID. We're still reeling. And we're also reeling from the current state of what's happening in travel right now, certain places in the world. You just don't know what's going to happen. So when you have someone who's advocating for you during COVID, we as Largay, we were able to get people out of there in places where people were stuck in a matter of hours, whereas other people were stuck for days if they hadn't booked through a travel advisor or through a travel company. Things like with the airlines, perhaps people were on hold for days with Delta. We were able to get straight through because we have an air department that works directly with all the airlines. So basically, in general, if you had to sum it up, peace of mind. So I hope that answers that.
Well, that's great.
Okay, thank you. Travel trends. Is this what you're talking about?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, here we go. So we like to say we are trending travel advisors. I feel like everybody who's, quote, an expert in their field is trending. I don't know. I'm at the age where my children, I just went to a wedding Saturday night. I don't know anybody nowadays that doesn't have a wedding planner. I don't know anyone that doesn't have a financial advisor. I don't know. Everybody is looking because we all lack time, right? And we're no longer trying to be experts in everything anymore. I don't think any of us are trying to be Martha Stewart anymore. I think that ship has sailed. God bless Martha Stewart. But I don't think any of us, we just don't have the time or the energy for that anymore. So we leave it to the person who knows what he or she is doing, who, even if she doesn't have the specific experience, she knows the person to go to then share it with her client. So we like to say travel advisors are most definitely trending. I mean, there's a lot of them. Are they all virtuoso? No. Are they all vetted? No. Are they all a part of an incredible host agency? No. So you have to be judicious, just like you do when you're choosing an advisor in any industry. But travel advisors for sure are trending. I said the US dollar because for a hot second there, it was pretty much neck and neck with the euro. The disparity has changed a little bit. I just booked Iceland. I did a final payment for Iceland yesterday, and it came to me in euros. It was 12,000 euros, which translated to $13,000. It's not terrible, but there was a while, like last summer, it was real even. The other thing that is definitely trending, I do so much of this, is multi-generational. So especially with COVID, people are they're making up for lost time and they want to make memories in wonderful places with their family. So multi-generational, the one I'm talking about that I referred to earlier, I have a grandmother, her sister, and her cousin, then her daughter, right? So it's someone like my mother's age, then someone my age, and then someone my children's age. So multi-generational. And this is my group. Just for one example, this is one of many. They're doing a river cruise and they're landing in Bucharest and they're doing it down the lower part of the Danube, Serbia, Croatia, Romania, and then they end in Budapest. And then they're going to coach over to Vienna and do a post for 2 nights in Vienna. Then they're going to fly to London and spend a week in London doing.
Wow, what a trip.
Yes, what a trip. So this is very common now. It doesn't have to be as extravagant as that, but let's say an Alaskan cruise, right? Let's say a beach trip to Pensacola. I did that for 13 families. That was multi-generation last summer. So multi-generational is definitely trending. Skip gen is when the grandparents take the children and they skip over me, for example. The grandparents want to take the kids and they don't want to bring their children along.
Yeah.
And they want to spend that special time just with their grandchildren. So that's very common now as well, so that they're creating their own memories without the parents, I don't know, interfering or micromanaging or whatever. They want to just take their grandkids and do it themselves. Off-season travel. This is typically what we call shoulder seasons, correct? So May to September what has always been traditionally considered off-season. But with everyone traveling, and travel is huge, it's really bleeding. If you really want a little less pricing and the weather's still pretty good, you really have to kind of go into April and October before, like for example, like Greece and Amalfi, those and Dalmatian coast, those areas shut down, for a certain time of year. So you have to, if you want a deal, you want to get in that very end of April, beginning of May, very end of September, beginning of October, before they shut down for the season. But in general, I mean, let's say Europe, for example, it's very expensive in the summer, but maybe you do a Christmas market in Vienna in November, or Slovenia, or London, or someplace before everything goes crazy over festive. You're going to save a little bit of money there because that's considered off season. So better rates, fewer crowds, and an authentic experience. Sustainability, that's huge in travel. I don't know if it's huge in any other part I feel like it is. It's about leaving the destination you traveled to in the same or better condition that when you arrived. So not, and perhaps having actually like a service component to your travel. That's a huge element too, especially in places like Africa or Asia, where there tends to be a significant population within poverty levels. So sustainability is also something that speaks to you. That's something that we do a lot of. Treating yourself, private jets, yacht charters, private islands, villas. Just recently, I just booked a family. They're celebrating their daughter's college graduation. They're doing a villa in Turks and Caicos. Yacht charters is very common in places like the BVI's. And private islands. We have a wonderful. There's one that's coming to mind is one in Panama where you can rent out the whole island. You private plane, pedal jumper in. People just like the idea of escaping. And this, of course, really came to the front of mind during COVID, where people just wanted to be with their people and have that like added sense of distance and security. And it hasn't stopped. Private jets, we talk about that. If you're a family that typically flies first class, I just booked a family of 5, all business, to Africa for a safari. Can you imagine what that bill cost? I just booked that family of 7 to 5 were premium economy and 2 were business. So if you're going in with like another family somewhere, the cost really isn't that. I mean, it's expensive, but if you're going with a larger group and you typically fly first or business, that's when you might really want to talk about private jets, if that's something that interests you. And then long-term planning, which is what I was talking about before. Just like you do long-term planning with Scott, you're not just talking about next year, next summer. You're talking next year, next summer, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when the kids leave, and then what you want to accomplish travel-wise, bucket list-wise, before, God forbid, that's taken off the table, because really travel is related to health, right? You have to travel while you can travel. And so you want to make that plan down the road. And I was actually Saturday night at the wedding, met people that are also clients. And so I have a phone call with them after this. And we're doing like we're setting up the next 3 trips. Like they want to do Ireland, then they want to do, I can't even remember. They want to do Africa, of course, because everybody wants to do Africa. So anyway, that's what I talk about with long-term planning.
So, and Heather, so you mentioned a few destinations here. What's trending for a destination? What are the popular places to go, or some of those must-sees that are on your list today?
So trending for 2024, and this is according to, this is something I looked up with American Express and Condé Nast, and then my own experience. Japan is huge, right? And China still is closed, but Japan is everybody wants to go to Japan. So myself, I have 3 separate trips booked to Japan, 1 in June and 2 in July, but there's not enough. A lot of our supplier partners won't even take Japan trips right now for summer 2024. It's kind of, if you didn't get in on 2024, you're going to have to wait, because I hate to say it, not that Japan is full, but there just aren't enough. There aren't enough like tour operators and things, that sort of thing I mean, could you buy yourself a plane ticket and go to Japan? Of course you could. But if you want to ensure that you had a hotel room in the part of town you wanted to be in, and the train tickets that you wanted, and you wanted to, the whole thing. Another way that I always tell people, if Japan, there are amazing cruises to Japan too. That is not nearly as well explored as people should explore it, because people just don't think about cruising to Japan, but you should, because it's a great way to see it. I saw somebody on there with Maldives. Maldives is amazing. It's an incredible destination. I have been to the Maldives, and I have clients that are celebrating 60th birthday to Maldives. It's beautiful. It's incredible. If you're not familiar, it's near India and Sri Lanka. So it's a great destination to pair with those 2 destinations, though either both of those or one of those destinations. It's a 45-minute flight to Malé, which is the main airport from Sri Lanka. It's also a great place to pair with Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Doha. So if those are places that you're interested in, or if you have business in, which a lot of our, especially Texans, do, Maldives is amazing. It's that set of atolls, and the hot topic is that there are the atolls disappearing. So a lot of people want to hit the Maldives before they are no longer. So Maldives, a bucket list for so many people. Istanbul, amazing. Everybody loves that idea. Part of it being in Europe and part of it being in Asia. Beautiful. As India, I just got back from India, but a lot of people love Istanbul too for the textiles and the shopping and the surrounding areas. So not only Istanbul, but the surrounding areas of Turkey. I know Nicole can speak to that because she did that last year. Colombia, Magdalena River, huge for river cruising. Cartagena is huge. I always talk about that movie, Romancing the Stone, from the 80s with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. If you have not seen it, you have homework, you have to go see it. Rent it on Netflix tonight, but it's all about Cartagena. Just makes me laugh. Lisbon, anything Portugal is huge. Everybody loves Portugal. I must have booked 10 different trips to Portugal. It's very reasonably priced, even compared to Spain. Oh, and as far as Portugal, you have Lisbon, you have Porto, but you also have the beautiful beaches. Okavango Delta, Botswana, all of Africa is huge. If you don't have Africa on your bucket list, you need to put it on there because I think people think of Africa as being so exotic that maybe they don't allow themselves to think, oh, everyone can get to Africa and for a pretty good price too. I will tell you, sometimes it's cheaper for me to send people to Africa than it is to Europe. And I shouldn't say sometimes, a lot of times. Because when you do go to Africa and you go to safari, especially South Africa, everything's included. When you are on safari, everything, your transfers, your game drives, every sip of alcohol, every meal, your sundowners, everything is included. So you'll end in Cape Town, which is my favorite city in the world, and you'll pay for your tours above and beyond. But Africa is amazing. Botswana is just a little more exotic and then you get into Kenya, and then for example, am doing Rwanda and Tanzania in the fall. So that's like the gorilla trekking, and then more safari in Tanzania. Montenegro, anything in Croatia. Everybody loves Croatia. Montenegro being near Croatia, beautiful. That whole Dalmatian coast area, people love that. Copenhagen, Scandinavia is huge. Australia is huge. Again, they were late to open. We're seeing a lot of Australia. And then Quebec and Canada, close, but so different. And especially for Texans, we want to get out of this heat.
Yeah,
So
I was just there on business.
Yeah.
I
Did you
spent a
love
couple
it?
days in Quebec, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
this really clean, wonderful city, and yeah, that was great. So
And
let me ask you,
Yeah.
off the beaten path travel ideas. What's up your sleeve in that category?
Off the beaten path. So we have lots of, there we go. Wanted to get you back on my screen so I can see you. So all these different companies that we work with, and there's a million more, but these are just examples of if you're adventure driven, or if you like to explore, we call them expedition travel. These are some really great examples. Explora is a expedition company. They also have that new cruise ship, the Explorer, which is that's my bucket list, is to get on Explora. But you can go into Patagonia and stay at these really cool lodges and have all these really cool experiences. A&K is a company called Abercrombie and Kent. They do private jet themed trips where you and a group of people travel from place to place on a private jet, and they're themed around sustainability or wine around the world or things like that. So it's all up to you. Basically, like I was saying before, if you can dream it, we can make it happen with our partners. I never pronounced this right, but Clayoquot is a place up in Canada, so not far, but a wilderness lodge. That's kind of a remote but close, very luxury way to camp. Lindblad does the Northwest Passage. White Desert, as far as I know, I think they're the only company where you can actually camp in glamp in Antarctica, and it leaves out of South Africa. Our owner, Paul Largay, just did that recently. And then, of course, Richard Branson doing the whole Virgin Galactic into space. So all of these are options, and all of things people are doing to achieve seeing the world. And just seeing the world is just never been more desired.
And so you mentioned that, since COVID, everybody wants to get out and see the world and travel and spend time with family. What are some of the more recent trips you've booked, and just maybe share a few of those destinations?
So recently, and I've booked more than this, I made this list.
Sure.
So right now, everybody knows Taylor is on her European tour, right? So I did this last summer when Harry Styles did it. We started, it was a mother and daughter, and they started in Italy because they wanted to go experience where he filmed his music video Golden. And so they went to Maori, which is where that was filmed, which is a beautiful part of the Amalfi. So they started in Rome, then they did Amalfi, and then they went over to England so that they could do the Harry Styles concert. But before that, in Wembley, they took the train down to Harry's hometown and did, where Harry went to school, where he worked. And then of course, while they were in London, they did, high tea and all that. So that was a fun one. And that's very common right now with, obviously, Taylor Swift's not from Europe, but that was fun because they encompassed everything that had to do with Harry in Europe. Oktoberfest in Munich, that's a fun one. Anything, Oktoberfest in Munich or Kentucky Derby or the Masters, all of those trips are really big for groups, getting your friends together and doing those sorts of trips. Those are people love that. I have a river cruise to Normandy coming up here. It's the oh, forgive me, is it the 80th anniversary of Normandy? I think it is. Is that right? I think that's right. So I have a mother and her 3 daughters, and they're doing Paris to Normandy and doing an extension in Normandy because that's something that is very special to them. I think the grandmother is 89, so she was a little girl, obviously, during World War II. The Galapagos is big, and that is, I have just booked that. There's several different ways to do the Galapagos. You can do a very small ship with 12 passengers. You can do a larger ship with around 80 to 100 passengers. That's the type of thing where you fly into Quito and do a really nice tour of Quito, and then you fly to Baltra and you do either the inner loop or the outer loop. And it's very, again, expedition, 2 excursions a day, following that Darwin path. You're guaranteed to become really tight with your fellow passengers, and the crew and the captain, everyone's very accessible on a Galapagos cruise. That's big. Last summer, I had a student, a friend of my daughter, and there was a whole group at the University of Texas. There's an event called the Texas 4000 where kids raise money for cancer research, and they ride their bikes from Austin, Texas to Anchorage, Alaska, the Texas 4000. And they cross over. And so I did all the planning for one of the families to welcome their daughter across the finish line. And then they did a land tour of Alaska. I will say, if you have never done Alaska, I would recommend doing Alaska via a cruise first. And then if you want to go back to Alaska, then I would do land. That's my take. We can talk about that if you ever want to talk more about that. Japan, huge. Safari, lots of safaris. Italy, Croatia, Greek Isles cruise with pre and post. That's something too to think about. If you're going all that way, if you're spending all that money, you're most likely going to want to stay on either end of a cruise, right? And when I say cruise, we have everything under the sun. We have those large ships, and then we have, a smaller ship such as a Sea Dream yachting club, or Ritz-Carlton, or a Ponant, or so there's a ship for everyone. And there's always an article that I love to share with my clients, which says, Generation Xers, watch out, the millennials are coming for your cruises. And what that means is that for some reason, my generation didn't. My parents cruised, but somehow, especially the Central Texans, not a lot of people cruise, but the millennials have figured it out. And they're like, why wouldn't you? You are basically on floating 5-star hotels. You see everything. You actually sometimes spend the night in port. And so cruises are making a huge comeback. One of my new favorite ones is Atlas. Oh, that's another one I'm dying to get on. Maldives honeymoon. That was awesome. I'm also doing Maldives 60th. This is one I have coming up this summer. I have a group of 100, which I normally don't do giant groups like this. but this one was fun. They're doing a 5-star resort in Cancun for a 50th birthday. They've hired an 80s band, and it's going to be a blast. Yeah, it's going to be a blast.
So Heather, with the expense of trips and all that's involved, what are your thoughts on trip insurance? I know there's different types of travel or trip insurance. Can you spend a little time talking about that and whether you think it's worth it?
It's 100% worth it. So you have invested a lot of times these trips cost more than my car.
Yeah.
Okay. And you wouldn't dream of driving your car without car insurance. And you don't just get travel insurance for cancellation. You also get, and everybody says, oh, I'm going no matter what. Even if my mother dies, I'm still going. People in their minds, like, I'm going. That's not how it always works out. Life happens and you're preparing for the unexpected, right? So, but travel insurance doesn't only protect having to cancel the trip, it also protects you while you're over there. Most people don't realize that your health insurance doesn't cover you in the places that you're going. So the travel insurance gives you your health protection while you're there. I have a friend whose father, I think they were it might have been in Norway, and they didn't have travel insurance, and it was all out of pocket. And it was like $65,000 or something like that, because you literally have to pony up your credit card if you need to be seen someplace and you don't have travel insurance with the health coverage. So it is just nothing I think anyone should fool around with. I get it for all my, I just had it for India. I've had it for them. And especially if you're going someplace remote, my God, and you have to be helicoptered out of there, evacuated. I have it for Rwanda. My daughter's going to, my son and my daughter are going to Croatia together. I just got their travel insurance. They're obviously young and healthy, but you never know.
When booking a flight nowadays, it seems a lot of times, as you're kind of just booking a local trip, they'll say, do you want a flight insurance on this or whatnot? Is there a difference in the type of insurance or who's issuing the insurance that you found? Some are more comprehensive than others.
There are some that are more comprehensive. And to your point, that family I just booked to Iceland, they all bought the insurance through Delta. But then they came back and also bought the insurance I provided them because they were afraid that what they purchased through Delta, and I think it was, and I love Allianz, I think it was Allianz, but it wasn't going to cover them as comprehensively as if they had just bought it all through what I was able to offer them. The other thing too is that I am not an insurance salesperson, just to be clear, but I have the ability to sell insurance through my reps or to provide you with insurance through my reps. So I have a go-to person if something, God forbid, happens and you have to file a claim and there's some sort of hiccup, then I have somebody that we can then go to and say, hey, Janet, what's going on with this? Whereas I would love to see that happen if you bought your insurance with Delta.
Yeah, you're going to a call center.
I love that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So MedJet is something. So basically with travel insurance, you are going to get your bills covered up to a certain amount, depending on the policy you buy. We also have a policy called CFAR, cancel for any reason. So if you decide you booked that trip to Africa, but you don't have a covered reason under a regular plan, but you had bought CFAR and you just said, you know what, I'm not feeling it, I don't want to go, you can cancel for any reason. MedJet is a supplement. So if you are buying typical travel insurance and you're brought to the closest hospital and you do get your care and it is covered, but it's to the closest medical facility. With MedJet, it's above and beyond. You choose where you're going to go. It's supplemental to your travel insurance, but if you want to come all the way back and go to Cedars-Sinai, then they'll get you to Cedars-Sinai. So that's something that a lot of people aren't aware of. So a lot of people, especially if they have any sort of like chronic illness or something like that, but they don't want to not travel, they'll add MedJet. And there's actually like a yearly membership with that as well. You don't have to do a yearly membership,
Sure.
but you, yeah.
Well, let me ask
Covac Global, that's not really that, we don't really need that anymore, right? So we can not talk about that.
So let me ask you, so kind of coming towards the end of our time, are there some final thoughts, things you'd like to leave with everybody here as we kind of come to an end?
Oh, thank you. Couple things that I do want to say. So when I work with an amazing software tool that I provide to all of my clients, I just have people leaving for Venice and Lake Como and Lake Garda next week, and they did a trip last year, not with me, and I did their trip, and then I put it all into Access, which is my software tool I use. So every piece of your trip is then put into this amazing tool, and you download the app and you put it on your phone. And for all your flights, all your tours, all your documents, all your transfers, all your hotel, your type of room, everything is in there. And they were just like, where was this? And I was like, I don't know who you were working with before, but I work with Access, and it's just, you'll never travel without someone who works with Access again, because it's incredible. And we call it a pocket itinerary. So you carry your complete, and then we can even like message each other on it, and it's dynamic. So if something needs to change, I can go in there and change it while you're traveling. Wanderlist is a tool that actually is specific to Virtuoso. And it was actually created by Merrill Lynch, because Merrill Lynch, as they were helping their clients prepare their line item for travel in their financial planning, they were trying to quantify how do we better encompass travel in this world, in their world of financial planning. And so you can go on to Virtuoso, you establish your own account, and you basically make this like a collage of where you want to go between now and when you're no longer traveling. And you use that, like we said, for long-term planning. But it's another great tool that we have through Virtuoso.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you.
Exciting. I got one question here for you. So how far in advance do you advise people to start planning one of these trips? I'm sure some take a little bit more advanced planning than others.
It really depends. Let's say Japan. You wanted to go to Japan next summer. I would start planning now, because last summer I had my first Japan, and they started planning in June, and they're going in this June. Then I had my next Japan plan in January. They were limited and their cost was more. And then I had another group start in February, same thing. So there's something like that. I mean, if you really know where you're going to want to go, and you've planned, and it's something like that, I would say give yourself at least 6 months. I had someone come to me last week who wants to do 3 weeks in Italy in September, and they're kind of dragging their feet, and they're like, I know. And I was like, y'all, that's going to be here real fast. And I just don't want you to, and the other big part of that too is the cost of flights, right? Mm-hmm. Flights just go up and up and up. So the earlier you can grab those flights, if you know you're going to want to go, you're going to want to have your plan in place. I had that person from India. She's going in 3 weeks. That's not ideal, but it can be done. It's just what's available is just more limited. Okay. There are places like Japan that were like, we're not taking any more inquiries right now. Ideally, I would say try to get those trips planned 6 months in advance.
Okay. Well, I got another one for you here. Alan says he's wanting to do a trip around the world over 90 to 120 day period with time on each continent. Is this something you can assist with? And are there any considerations for being out of the U.S. for that continuous period of time?
Is it written here in the, oh, here's Alan.
Yes,
I want the chat. We can do that through A&K. They have a wonderful around the world journey. And as long as we know all like the visa requirements of where you're going, 90 days is what typically, but I would need to look into it more, but this is definitely something that happens regularly. So we would just need to explore it explore it long, exactly where you're wanting to go and how long you want to be gone. The other big thing too is that everybody needs to do, besides watching Romancing the Stone, is getting your passports out and making sure that if you are going to travel, that they are valid for more than 6 months after your date of departure. Because if they're not, they're invalid. It's really like a cheater, pumpkin eater on the government's part, because if you're going to Cancun next week and your passport expires June 1st, your passport's invalid, which makes it ridiculous because on the date it's not, but so that's something that everybody, if you're thinking of, and then go get your passports renewed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people don't know that if you're not working, Expedia is not going to tell you that. So that's a freebie right there, everybody. Okay.
Yeah, in our financial planning software that we have, and where every client has access to a vault, we have a number of clients that have scanned in their passport information and their healthcare information, so that if the passport gets lost when they're out and about, as long as you can get to a computer and dial into this program, it's a secure vault where you have a picture of at least your numbers. And
you also always want to make a paper copy and bring it with you, and you want to leave a paper copy with a trusted person at home. Okay. Always.
Great idea. And to Alan's question, are there things that come to mind, or in your experience, that, hey, if you're going to be out of the country for 3 or 4 months, that you should be aware of, things to do?
Well, the number one thing is being able to be gone on your passport for more than 90 days and in a country. Typically, it's my understanding you can only be, there are certain countries that, like I have a friend right now who's in Europe, and she's been gone that 90 days. So she has to go to a country for a little bit where that doesn't matter, right? So I think she had to go to Singapore for a little bit, and then the number reset, and then she could go back to Italy. So all of that has to be massaged and maneuvered if you're going to be gone for that long. But you're working with a company, like I said, A&K comes to mind, and all of that is managed. Every single bit of that detail is managed.
And to plan that kind of a trip for 3 or 4 months, there's obviously a lot of moving parts very involved. So if you're booking that trip, you're getting paid through the vendors that you're selecting, or is there an extra charge on your end to plan this, or how does that work?
Okay. So yes. So I make a commission off of every, just like every trade you make a commission off of. I make a commission off of the company, through the companies I work with, through the companies I book with, and that commission varies depending on the company. I also charge a planning fee, and the planning fee varies depending on the complexity of the trip, how many people are traveling, that kind of thing. In general, I charge a $400 planning fee.
Outside of something that's more extravagant with more people and cars, everything else you get paid through the people the services that you're booking through.
Right. And sometimes I don't get paid for anything. Like if I book you transfers through the concierge and I do that complimentary for you, I don't get paid for, through the concierge at the hotel.
Yeah.
So there, but in general, I start at a $400 planning fee to plan a trip. If it's something,
sure,
outside of the scope, and we would discuss that one-on-one. I will say, Alan, there are, I don't know how you feel about this, and I've never booked it, but I know people that have. I have one colleague who just booked a trip like this through A&K, an around the world tour. And we were in India together. And then I have another colleague who's booked, there's the, where you do the same sort of trip on a cruise ship, and you're going from port to port. So there's several different ways. And again, the companies we work with, they're experts on what the rules are from country to country, how long you can be someplace, how long you can be out of the country. I mean, as far as considerations, that's what I'm assuming you're talking about for being out of the U.S. for the period of time. The other thing I'm talking about as the mother of 5, I'm thinking about, like, you got to get your mail stopped. Right. And you got to do all the tasks that I'm always tasked with. You got to get your mail stopped. You got to, if you're going to vote, you got to, all that thing.
Okay. Well, do we see any other questions?
Oh, I see Malta. Is Malta your favorite, Nicole, or do you want to go to Malta? I feel like you went to Malta. I don't know. You can pop in there, Nicole, if you want to, if you're still there. Have been to Mexico dozens of times. Love it. Bucket list to Maldives for 2 weeks.
And Mexico, with all the crazy stuff happening in all parts of the world, you read some stories about Mexico. Is it safe or not? You and I have talked about, you go there all the time, and
I go there all the time and I book it all the time. And I would just say I can't make a travel decision for anybody, but I mean, Mexico is I love Mexico. I think it's beautiful. I think it's convenient to Austin, Texas. The resorts are amazing. But that's a personal decision if you think it's safe or not. So I really can't address that for an individual.
Well, Heather, can you, I think on the last page of your presentation that's still there, there's your contact information. So we'll have this recording on our website, and then there's Heather's information. Please reach out to her, ask any questions that you have, refer her to friends and family. I know she does great work. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Heather,
much.
thank you for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it. And
thank you for having me. This has been wonderful. And I'd love to work with any of your clients and help with their travel dreams, because this really is all about fulfilling your dreams.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we'll end it here. We'll put the recording on the website and wish everybody a good day.
Yes, please. And please reach out to me if you need anything. Thank you.
Right,
thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Guys, have a great. Oh, I see one more chat.
Oh,
Thank you. Okay. Bye, Nicole. Thank you. Bye.
bye.